And we're going to begin. Anyone joining us in the process will join us in the process. But again, warm welcome to all of you folks today. Thank you very much for making time to join our webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about a lot of exciting things. And of course, you have our team as your hosts. Nikita, our founder and CEO, and Glen Holmes, our VP of Product, will be presenting. A couple of words before we begin, before I pass the word to Nikita. This webinar is recorded, right? So in case if you cannot stay for the entirety of its duration, no worries about that. You're going to get the recording tomorrow at about the same time that we conclude today. And of course, if you come across any questions during the webinar that you would like to address to Nikita and or Glen, please feel free to put them into the Q&A box in our webinar. And as we go, we're going to address those questions towards the end of the session, right? So about the last 15 minutes are going to be dedicated to that. But yeah, with that said, again, thank you very much for joining, and I'm going to pass the word to Nikita.
Yeah, thanks, Ilya, and thank you everyone for joining this webinar. I'm so happy to see you all there. So as you probably know, so world is changing and changing fast, and with the evolution of large language models, the landscape of how software is built and tested is changing, and we've been always on a path on helping companies, great teams, building great products. And today we are going to share with you a few exciting updates on Qase and AIDEN, and show you how it works and how that can help you. I'm going to pass a word to our VP of Product, Glen. He'll be the main character today.
Hey, thanks, Nikita. And just to echo Nikita's sentiments, folks, thanks so much for joining. You know, a lot of you are taking time out of your day. It's early in many parts of the world and it's late in others. And you know, looking at the list of locations, it really truly is global. So we do appreciate, we don't take for granted you taking some time out of your day, and hopefully it's going to be worth it for you. So Nikita alluded to there, the world is changing. And you know, here at Qase, we've been thinking about, you know, what does that mean for us and what does that mean for our industry in total? And you know, the elephant in the room is, you know, AI, large language models, the ubiquity of them. Everybody's using them to produce code. And what does that mean for quality? You know, are we all going to be replaced by bots in the end? And actually, the more we reflect on this and what we're seeing from the market is that quality and quality assurance is actually really in vogue. And it's become really, really more important across the software development life cycle. And we're seeing it where, you know, the ubiquity and the proliferation of assistants that are generating this code, what they're producing, and you know, the trust in what they're producing is really not very high, and therefore quality is becoming more important. Now, you know, we think about this in the concept of how people work, and people talk about productivity improvements with engineers writing code. If anyone's familiar with Amdahl's law, I'm going to paraphrase it, but is where you increase the efficiency in one part of a system, it actually creates constraints in the rest of the system, or certainly in other parts of the system. And we're seeing that in evidence today. More and more code's being produced. The constraint then becomes, how do we test that? How do we verify that? How do we ensure that that code is of production ready quality? And it's no surprise we've seen many more issues around AI generated code recently. And this is AWS being down, Claude itself being down. So we're seeing a lot of issues in the world that is prompting the rise of quality, or the rise of, I suppose, the importance of quality. And, you know, what does this mean for the world? It means it's a great time to be in quality, right? It really is. And what we're going to do is I'm going to talk to you in the next 30 minutes or so about what we're doing at Qase to help with that and to address those issues of proliferation of code and how we test them, and, you know, the wave of work that us as quality assurance people have to get through and will have to get through in the future. So I'm going to start with something that's I suppose, again, becoming very zeitgeist. We've heard a lot about this, and it's our MCP, our Model Context Protocol. Okay, I'm going to start with that at the beginning, but first, actually, I'm going to digress a little bit about that's the agenda. Sorry, what I'm going to talk about. It's going to talk about Qase MCP, our Model Context Protocol. I'm going to talk about global shared steps, right? Something that we've introduced recently, made massive improvements to. It's one of the highly utilized area of our product. I just want to share that across with everybody to make sure you're utilizing that correctly and the improvements we've made in it. I'm going to talk about AIDEN, our AI testing product, and how we've extended that to cover API testing. I'm going to cover AIDEN Agentic Mode. So it's a kind of a different paradigm about how you write automated tests. And then I'm going to talk about how our recent support for AIDEN parameterized tests. So I don't know how many of you joined the webinar. I think it was the end of last year, and we brought you through AIDEN and what it did. So I won't go in and I won't talk about everything that AIDEN does. I won't give a demo of everything that AIDEN is. But what I will do is I'll just recap slightly on that. The way we look at the world, or the way the world, was kind of, when it came to quality, was constructed is that what we term the orange triangle of QA, which is basically you've got coverage, time to market, and quality. And every time you try to kind of stretch or do more in one of those areas, it added constraints to the other areas. So if you increase coverage, your time to market would slow down because you had to cover more of the product, okay? Impact and quality may not be improved if you rush, if you only focus on coverage and not on depth of quality. If you tried to speed your time to market, it meant you probably tested less, you reduced coverage, the quality of your tests weren't as high. So that, speeding up time to market impacted those. And then if you really focus on just pure quality, high coverage, or, really quality tests, that, alternative path tests, negative tests, all of that type of thing, you generally would impact your coverage because it's really hard to cover everything if your quality of your tests are higher and your speed to market slow down. So there was always this kind of conflicting or constraints or, rubbing together. We don't believe that has to be the case. And that's what we came up with AIDEN. And what we wanted to do initially with AIDEN was we wanted to solve the problem of companies who, well, not say problem, but the objective for companies who are predominantly manual testing to move to automation, right? So everybody does say they want to go to automation. Manual testing is a huge part of testing and very, very valid and required, particularly now, part of testing. But what we want to do, you can't scale it as well, okay? So everyone wants it, maybe go to automation, do a lot of regression in automation, maybe test their new features using manual, but they want to do some sort of automation. And it's really hard. And what we call the maturity model of organizations, which is stage one, organizations are your startups, right? Your small companies, who don't really have a quality function. Quality is slightly bit of an afterthought. It's kind of get it out there, break it, let our customers test it, and we'll fix it really quickly. And then as you mature, as you scale, that doesn't work, right? You've got to have some level of quality, and you introduce quality as a function, as part of the SDLC, and you start writing manual tests. You probably adopt a test management system like Qase, and you're getting heavily into the process of testing. And then what happens is you kind of want to do some automation. Again, maybe you've got a big backlog of tests. You want to automate some of those and continue manual testing or writing your test cases and getting somebody to automate them. And that's what I call crossing the chasm. It's really difficult to go from stage 2 to stage 3 in a maturity model. Really difficult because it's a different skill sets, right? You got a manual tester, generally quite good domain knowledge, understands the application, focus on the context, automation engineers, developer, engineer / person who would have less context, writes code. Very difficult to probably train manual tester into automation. You've got infrastructure requirements. You've got to have your own infrastructure to run these tests. You've got to analyze these tests. You've got to observe these tests. You've got to optimize those tests. Again, different skill set. Very costly, is expensive, and crossing that chasm is very difficult. And we said, well, why is it difficult? It shouldn't be. And that's why we introduced AIDEN. And what AIDEN really did was it replicated full QA team, okay? So all of your different roles, your manual tester, test analyst, automation engineer, QA architect, it's like having a team of QAs that you can scale more easy and get to automation from manual testing much easier. So it instantly converts manual tests into automated tests. It could generate tests, both manual and automated tests, directly from requirements. It executes those tests at scale. and optimizes them for testing, and it gives you deep insights into the efficacy of your tests, the efficiency, the failures, etc. No, didn't need any coding skills, didn't need any infrastructure skills, so there's no hassle. So it allowed you to go on that journey from manual to automation, way more seamlessly, and it reduced that chasm that I mentioned. That's just a kind of review of what AIDEN is. So yeah, going from requirements, the manual test case, to automated test case, to test execution and results as well. So that's kind of whistle stop of what AIDEN is. Now I'm going to give you kind of an example of what we've done since that last webinar. Okay, so we've introduced more recently Qase MCP. It'd be interesting if anybody on the webinar might let us know in the chat or something if you've actually used our MCP. It'd be interesting if you have. But essentially, MCP, again, very, very kind of zeitgeist, ubiquitous term. Everybody's coming out with MCPs. CLIs are the new thing now, as well as MCPs. But essentially, when you're working in a lot of tools like Claude, Cursor, Windsurf, these tools that essentially, everyone's using as assistants. Non-developers are using them to write applications. But you've no visibility into test cases, runs or results, or how they operate, right? Because you're a bit blind to quality. Now, what Model Context Protocol is, or MCP? It's an open standard, right, that lets AI tools connect to your external platforms. So basically, I think the analogy that everyone uses is it's a USB-C for your applications. So it allows you to get context and capabilities from other applications seamlessly working together. Okay? Simple as that. So what it allows you to do, our MCP, is it create a full QA workflow from a conversation. So you can create and organize test cases. You can bulk generate cases from specs. You can start test runs. You can do kind of everything you can do within the case application via our MCP. Okay. Now I want to talk a little bit. So yeah, built for engineers, right, who live in their IDE generally, right? So if you use Cursor, use Claude, use Windsurf, or any MCP compatible tool, you can integrate cases your workflow. And I'm going to explain a little bit how we do that within Qase. Okay. So I'll give you just a real basic example of simple MCP call we have. So this is my Claude terminal, Claude Code terminal. I have an MCP in there, and I've tried the case connected MCP, and I'm just telling this in the case workspace in this project, create a test case with a title. Now, if I go into this project, this is the MCP test. There's no test in this. If I were to go and execute this, it'll go off, find my MCP, and you will see. I'll come back to this in a moment because it takes a few moments to as it tells, it's shimmying at the moment and it's looking up everything. That's a simple test case. But what I've done to augment that in a practical sense, right, is when I basically develop anything so again, it's democratized development, right? Large language models and all these assistants. So product managers, support people, we can all develop apps, we can enhance our application, we can fix bugs. So if I'm going and developing an app for myself, I've lots of productivity apps I've done, we probably all have done. I actually have integrated the Qase MCP that every time I create a pull request, it will write test cases for me. It will execute those test cases, and it will give me any failures in my application update. So it goes and actually writes test cases every time I go to do a commit. That's really powerful. So straight execution on our infrastructure and gives me the results back really easy. And I'm going to give you an example of some of the things I did. Sorry, I'm going to go back in to my Claude. Where are we? So it should show me a test case now. If I refresh my screen, yeah. So there you go. It's just simply created a very, very simple test case. Now think of that on scale.
Glen,
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you, but it looks like you haven't been sharing the actual Claude screen, but have been looking at
sorry. My Zoom must have not shared that application. Okay. Sorry. I'll just to prove that I have actually done this. I will, let me share my slide. Share it up. So you can see it now. Okay.
All good now. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So that was the prompt in the Qase workspace. Apologies, folks. I created a test case with a title. The description was this was created by MCP with 2 steps. So a very natural kind of language description, right? In this workspace, in this project, give it a test case. Here's the description. Here's step. Very simple, right? Not very practical use case in this here, but you can think of how this works. And it created that. Now I'm not. Hold on, till I share my other workspace. I don't know if you can see. Sorry, share my this. Yeah. So, and it created this webinar demo. Now, think about the applications of this are really good. So, what I've also done myself is that I've integrated with Super Whisper, okay, and the Super Whisper MCP. So I can actually talk and narrate a test case as well if I wanted to create a manual test case, and it creates it in the application or the project. So I can say, okay, create a test case, call this in this project. Step 1 is this, and the expected result is Y, and step 2 is this, and the expected result is Z, and it would create it for her. So just those type of, it's unlimited almost the things you can do. Now, really kind of where it starts to get very kind of applicable is start taking the Qase MCP and augmenting it with other MCPs. So I've got an application here called Qase Chat, right? And simply what I'll do, I've just got a couple of pre-built prompts here. So forgive me for a moment. I'm going to ask it a question, and I'm going to say in the test run that I have apps 135. So the name of the test run is apps 135 refactor in filters for run dashboard and add layers. In the Qase monolith project or main project, why did the test fail? So I'm just going to say, why did the test fail? So what were the failures? Now I'm going to ask, so what that's doing essentially is it's going after our MCP. It's understanding it from a natural language perspective, and it's finding that test run with all the test runs, any failed tests, and it's looking at those failed tests. It's looking at the test results, the context, getting the stack trace, etc., and it's figuring out why they failed. Right. So very easy to do. Now here's one I built earlier, just because it can take a bit of a while, and I know, to get through this. So I've asked this same test, and it's giving me, here's a full breakdown of why it failed. There was 3 failures, the exact same class, indicates missing PHP class, tells me how it failed, gives me a little context about the result. And then the refactor of filter endpoints, introduce or remove this. So it tells me why it failed. And basically, all the context I need there. So it's still working there, and we'll get it back in a moment. What I did subsequently then is I said, based on this failure, what prompt would you suggest that I run on my Claude agent to fix it? So it's based on the failure. It's actually giving me the prompt to fix this. So it goes through. Here's the prompt in the app repository. All the context the prompt needs. Search the code base for any recent changes. If the class remade, update all references. So it basically tells me how to fix this. So think about this as a workflow, that any test failures, tell me why they failed, tell me what they are, tell me why they failed, and tell my agent or tell my developer how to fix this. Okay. Now that's really good. But imagine that flow is fine. And it's what people, tend to try and implement. But do you really want to stop a release, right? Do you really want to get an agent to do a fix that's using a really complex model that's very expensive, right? To fix something, right? So you're telling an agent that uses the latest version of Claude Opus, it's consuming lots of tokens, it's costing a lot, and you don't really know anything about that other than it's failed. You don't know if it's a big failure, it's a little failure, you don't know how it impacts. So what I've done is we've augmented our Amplitude MCP. Now, Amplitude, if anyone knows the product, is usage-based. It gives you events, the utilization of your product, like what people are clicking on, what endpoints they're going to, what's really popular in your product, what's not, right? So it's basically used like Google Analytics, Pendos, and other. So I've taken that MCP And I've actually asked, I said, I would like to know the impact of the error based on the amplitude data. Does this error affect a highly utilized part of my application? So as a product manager, I want to know, yes, there's a bug, but can I release that bug? Like, is it a big bug? Is it a little bug? What's the impact of this? And what it's done is it's gone off and it's looked at the comprehensive impact analysis based on amplitude data. So sorry, just to say that this is true and it's not worded there, that's the original one I just ran for you. And that's given me the same feedback. Just so you know, this isn't vape, this isn't smoke and mirrors. It's true. So you want to know the errors based on the amplitude data. So what it's done here is it's gone off, it's done an impact analysis, and it's looked at the endpoint where the failure is. And it's told me that it's heavily trafficked. The run dashboard open event is that was one of the most active parts of the application. It gives me the metrics of daily active users, active opens, right? It gives, so now you're getting basically empirical objective data about the impact of that failure. So I would say, yes, fix it immediately, right? It's a bug. We can't go to product. We can't release this because it's such a highly utilized part. And maybe it's worth spending money on an expensive model and giving it to an agent to fix really quickly because we have the prompts to fix it. So go and do it, right? Whereas essentially, maybe that was a low utilization area, right? Maybe it's something that's, very infrequently used and not a big cohort uses it. You might say, is it worth releasing? And we'll fix that really quickly after release, or when we go, we'll have a follow-up fix for it. Or, are we just like, no, just this, let's not release? Or do we say, let an agent fix it or give it to a developer to fix? We can start building kind of workflows to route those based on the augmentation of all of these different data points that add way more context to our testing process. And this is really, really valuable and something that, again, we started to embrace, and, you're going to see a lot more of this within our product. So I know there's a few questions and hands up. We will get back to, we'll have plenty of time for questions. I'm going to just move on for now. So I hope you can see the value of our MCP there. And, when you start utilizing these, you really start to come up with great ideas and really kind of valuable kind of improvements to your workflows. And then again, just leverage case. And all you need for a Qase MCP is a case count. So, and you can, I'll tell you, it's on our GitHub. That's our GitHub there. We'll send a link out to everybody. It's also on some of the MCP exchanges. Okay. I'll move on. So another product, we get away from kind of our AIDEN focus for just a moment, and I'll come back to the core product. And this is very applicable for AIDEN and everyone else, which is shared steps, right? So for those of you who are using Qase, or your Qase users or Qase customers, you probably use shared steps. It's really valuable, very, very highly utilized part. And essentially what it does, it allows you to define a step once and share that to all different projects within the Qase workspace. Previously, it was only on a project level. So you could have a shared step and it only worked in that project. Now we've got global shared steps. So now at a workspace level, you can define a step. So it's, take, for instance, a login, an authentication flow. You can define that once as a global and share that among all your projects where it's applicable. And the real value of that is that you only have to update it in that one area, and it propagates to every single test case, right? It's really, really valuable. So it maintains consistency. It makes it your application, your testing so much more easier to maintain. Okay, think about, you have an API or endpoint test, and there's a change to the endpoint, right? Or there's some sort of change in authentication flow, whatever it is. Even the button instead of login is sign in or something. Now imagine if you've got to go to every single test case that you have that uses that step, right? That could be 1,000 test cases to update. Shared step once and it propagates. Really, really, really easy way of maintaining and just maintaining and also propagating and updating your tests. So I'm just going to switch out to my own workspace, and I'm just going to switch and I'll show you global shared steps in action. So one of the main things we've had, if anyone's used shared steps, is it was kind of a flat list. You create a shared step and then another shared step and another shared step. And the feedback we got was that we love shared steps. We use them all the time, but we've thousands of them. And it's really, really hard to organize them and know where it's applicable. It becomes, because we utilize them so much, they become harder to manage. So if I were to go into this, and I'll show you, so that's shared steps at a project level, but I'm going to show you at the workspace level. So at workspace here, you'll see shared steps. Now, so I've got a couple of shared steps here. So think if you have say you're testing CRM and it's got multiple modules, and you've got marketing and you've got support. You might have, so I can add a new folder, and I might say, do you know what? I'm actually going to, we've also got a sales module. So I'll just create sales. Now it allows me to organize and start placing specific shared steps for each module into these folders. Okay, just making it much easier to maintain and understand. So if I go into marketing here, I've got log into marketing module. Support, log into support. Sales, I can put in this, log into sales. You can think about how you can much more easily manage it. So you can have subfolders. So I can create a new folder within marketing. In marketing here, I'll create a new folder and I'll call it auth within marketing. And you'll see, again, just much more easier. So it's kind of like your repository for your shared steps. What that makes that really, really easy is that if I go to this project and I was to create a manual test case, I create it manually, I'll call it test 1 because I have no imagination. So I'll give it a really bad title. And if I had a new shared step, and you'll see here, they're global, or I could have local as well, but I'm going to go marketing and I'm going to say log into marketing module. I'm going to add that. I'm going to save this. And you'll see it's got the shared step. See, now if I go to another project, say I go Glen's app, and I create a new manual test, and I call this test 2, and I have the same shared step. Makes it, again, so much easier. Don't have to write it. Marketing, log into marketing module, add it, save. And again, you'll see I've got marketing CTA. For step 1, you'll see it is click on the marketing CTA. Now, if I go to my workspace, go to my shared steps, and decide that, do you know what? It's not a CTA. It's a tile or something, right? Good. Again, I'm being very simplistic, but log onto the marketing tile on the dashboard, and I save those changes, and I go back into my projects, and I go to my demo, and I look at test 1. I will see on the dashboard, click on the marketing tile. So updated one area, it's in both projects. It's been updated. So it propagates down. Again, expand that by 1,000, right? Is what people, you've got test cases. One shared step that's in 1,000 test cases. You can see the value of it. We've also got it in parameters. I'm going to talk about how AIDEN handles parameters in a minute. We've also got that in shared parameters. So again, think about if you have a parameterized test case, something like, and this goes with shared parameters, okay? Think about if you have a new iOS version comes out, and you've got to add that for your testing. And you've got to go to every test case that has all your tests and go add in iOS version X, iOS version X. Again, if you've got one global share parameter, you update it, that propagates to every test. So just, again, makes it much easier for maintenance. Okay, so, and it's way easier now for organizing. Global shares, it's way easier for organizing, and it's at a global level. So that's really powerful. And again, we obviously monitor when we release a new feature, we monitor the adoption. Global sharing steps is probably one of the highest adopted features we've ever released. So it's been really popular. So I'll digress a bit to AIDEN and talking about more improvements around there. So previously AIDEN was very much UI test focused. Okay, so point and tell it what to do and what to click on, and it will test it. But we know that that's not the only testing you do, right? API testing is critical, but it can be very tedious to set up. So again, writing an automated test case for an API test can be tedious, be difficult. So we want to know, we wanted to address how can we make that as easy as possible for people when they're attempting to automate API test cases. So easiest way to do this I'm going to talk about is I'm going to demo it to you. So I'm going to go into AIDEN here, and I'm actually going to take my projects. and I'm going to go into my demo project, and you'll see I have a test called API test. Now that API test is simple. It just sends a post request to this, extracts the token field, gets the token and uses it to send a post request to this and a get request to this endpoint. So pretty basic, but it's just to showcase what it does. And I'm going to automate this. So just something right here. So I'm going to click on automate. So I'm taking this test case, I've described what I want to do, and I'm just going to automate it. So, I've already done this. Let me restart this. Oh, it's tested converting. So let me run this again. Can I discard this actually? Can I run it again? So apologies. That was me testing that it definitely worked. So I automate it now. It should be fun. Yeah. So I'm going to create the environment, which is this practice expand test, and I'm going to start. And what it's doing now, it's basically what AIDEN goes off is it will take a look at the instructions it's got, and it will decide now that it break them down into the steps pretty easily. It's pretty basic because it's already got the steps defined, and it will go off and do that. And it gives me a lot of feedback here. So this is part of, I'll talk a little bit more about the agentic mode in a moment, but it gives you much more feedback than previously about what it is actually doing. So it's finding selectors. It's basically doing a lot of the thinking here. So it's open the first page. It's sending that post request, and the great thing is it's recording is basically in posterity a record of everything it does. So you'll see a screenshot of that page it's going into. Then it's got a screenshot of the request it's making, the response it's getting, the body, etc. So it's a really kind of easy way of testing out, running API tests. And I've given you a very basic example. You can go in and you can use Agentic Mode, and I'll talk about that in a moment, to say send a post request to this, use this, and it'll interpret from your request, which I'll again when I talk Agentic Mode in a minute, what it does, and it will give you results. So you can see here, this is run pretty quickly. So it sent the post request. So each step you can see it's opened this page. This is the post request. So it's sent. I can look at the requests, look at the headers, the body, it's posted it. Step 3 was it extracted a token field from the login response. And then it used that token and it sent a request using, you can see here, header X, the header, the token, the request, and then it sent the get request. So very, very easy way of automating a straightforward API test. So you can see, and done it very quickly. Obviously, you can have more complex flows. That's fine. For this demo, we'll do a simple one. Next is up. I'm going to talk about agentic mode. Okay, so we talk about AI test generation is useful, but you still have to drive. So previously with AIDEN, again, to go back to what I mentioned at the start about taking manual tests and automating them, we kind of started with the kind of, the mental model of manual tests, which is create the steps, define a bunch of steps. This is what I should do. And then usually test it. And we should define a bunch of tests. Now automate those tests. And now we know people are working differently because you've got, given prompts, and we don't need to be so formal as the step and expected result. Just kind of talk conversely to a bot and tell it what to do. So we've gotten away from that kind of, you had to drive. Now we're letting AIDEN do the work. Okay. So basically what it does, it takes a request, a requirement, an instruction, and it plans and it executes it. Okay. So you provide an AIDEN with an instruction, analyze the instruction based on context, generates and writes a test case, actually executes it too. I'll talk about that in a moment. And then you can review or find. So you're still in the loop, right? So you can still review and say, yes, it worked, it executed end to end. Or you can say, no, it actually, yes, the test might have even passed, but it didn't actually test everything it should have. And what we want to kind of move away from is testing code to testing requirements, because that's really where testing, and particularly as we're moving in the world of LLMs and that's just producing code, we want to test the requirement. So taking a requirement, converting that into an automated test case and executing that. And that's really what we do. So you give it a requirement, give it an instruction and tell it to test. And that's really where we're going with AIDEN. And I'm going to talk about that rather than talk about it, I'm going to demo what it is. Again, I'll take one of my prompts that I've pre-prepared. And this is really, really simple because I'm just conscious of time and going to waiting around too long for it to test. Not that it takes long, but it take more than the 10 minutes. I'm going to go to my repository and I'm going to, sorry, move this out of the way. I'm going to create an automated test case. So I'm going to connect the environment, which is app.case.io. I'm going to start this. I'm going to just give it a simple, very, very simple instruction here. So it's kicking off here. It's going to open my case application and I'm just going to have to log in with this specific and verify the project list. So again, that's all it. So I didn't have to define steps. I didn't have to say, log in, expected result, enter in the email field, this, enter in the password field, this. I just gave it a very, very basic thing. Say, log in with this and the project list must be present, right? So like the worst manual test you could possibly ever write. Obviously, I'm sure everyone on the call writes much better tests than that, but it is an example of, it has the context, it kind of understands it. So it's breaking it down into steps and it's going and executing them. So it's logged in, it's now filling the email field with the email, it's getting the password, and it's basically just going to verify that the project list is paid. That's the simple example of an agentic flow. Now, I've got bigger prompts here. Every time we could go through where I've asked it to go and fill out on a very basic prompt, go to a insurance site, a car insurance, actually just an insurance comparison website, and get me a quote for my car. And here's the registration of my car. And it's gone off and it's logged in and it's got the quote. And one of the things that AIDEN is really good at now is if you give it an instruction such as like for instance, in that example, I said, find me the car insurance site. It'll go and it'll actually, there is no car insurance, it's motor insurance. So it looks for car insurance, it doesn't find it, and then it fixes it done. So it's not quite self-healing, but self-correcting. So it actually can figure out from context about what you mean and do that. So you see that's run pretty quickly. And again, austerity on everything, it's gone and it's now got a automated test that has tested that. I can save that, I can save and run it and execute it again and again from my repository, and it'll execute on our infrastructure. Or I could even download that in whatever framework I like. So if I have Playwright, if I have my own CI/CD and I want in Playwright or in Cypress or JSON, whatever, I can download it and execute it on that framework for me if I like. So that's kind of different use cases. So again, very, very easy way of, I suppose communicating more with what we're used to nowadays, which is just giving an instruction and probably not a very detailed instruction and letting the LLM do the work. And that's essentially what AIDEN does now in Agentic Mode. Now, there's my lovable, my demo, I'm not my lovable thing seems to be gone missing. I don't know what I've done with it. Anyway, I'll address because I'm going to demo the last thing. So the last area we're going to demo now is shared parameters and parameterized tests in AIDEN. So people, again, are case users, or people just essentially use their whatever test manager you use. Most likely use parameters, right? So classic example is browser version, OS version, browser version, device, something like that, right? And you got, test on iPhone, on this for all these different iOS versions, right? And essentially that's one test, but it could create, depending on the matrix of results, could create 18 tests, right? It could create 100 tests because they're all parameterized. Now, the way, AIDEN previously handled that, which was not very well with that, it actually would even generate just multiple, it didn't support parameters, and then the next version supported parameters, but it could create 100 tests. Now that consumes a lot of tokens and a lot of credits. So we've looked at refining that, how that works better. And I'll give you an example. So here I've got a parameterized test. Okay, so the test checks the MovieDB website have reviews of recent or upcoming releases. Okay, so what it does is it essentially goes off to this, and it's looking in this case for two. If I edit this test, it'll give you more context. So it basically the parameters it has here is movie link and movie name. So it's Project Hail Mary, and it's Dune Part 3. And what I want to do is go and test this website based on the parameters that I've added. Okay, so if I go and automate this now, and I collect the environment, which is the MovieDB org, and I start, you'll see it goes off. And again, very simple example of parameterized tests. But think about this from you have, again, take our share parameters where you've got multiple parameters. You've got a new iOS version. Now, it will automatically automate that, right? As you add to it, it'll take that parameter in and create those parameterized tests. But what it's doing here, which is clever, is that instead of actually, it goes to the website and it will look for Project Hail Mary. And instead of writing a separate test for Dune Part 3, it just breaks off and branches off on those steps. So it will do a test for Project Hail Mary. It will verify that, and then it will use the same context for parameter for Dune 3, in this case it's looking for, and complete that test rather than create you a myriad of test cases. So you only have to, again, update it once in one area. You only maintain that single test. You add parameters to that. It doesn't create a explosion of 100 test cases for that. It still is basically sourced through to a single test that just has multiple parameters. So again, making it much more easier to maintain, consumes less credits, and is essentially faster because it has way more context. So you see here, it's gone and opened a movie. It's verified that there is a Project Hail Mary, and it's kept, one thing, remember, it's keeping a record of all your tests in posterity. Each time it has an interaction, it's stored as a video, as a screenshot. You can go and record, you can verify yourself. It allows you to verify as a human that this test has actually worked. And then that just stays in your repository, and you can run that, execute that automated test as many times as you like in the future. So just again, allowing you way more ease of conversion from manual to automated, ease of maintenance, and way more efficient on your costs as well for credit consumption. So that's everything we've released. So I've gone through it very quickly, and I'm really excited to get back to the questions and see what you have. I just want to emphasize that, these are the things we're doing at AIDEN. We've got lots more plans in the future, and we're going to see way more improvements to the core product and to AIDEN. We're leveraging a lot of AI capabilities, but where they're required, not in everything, to give you much more in-depth knowledge into how your testing is operating, the efficiency of your manual and your automated testing, how your teams are performing. All of that is coming soon. But this is what we've done in the recent past. Hope you're as excited about it as we are. We're very excited about where quality is going, the importance of quality. I think it's great. It's like a renaissance of quality at the moment. I think it's brilliant, and we're so happy to be at that kind of the cutting edge of that. So that's everything today. I know we're right on 45 minutes, so I've managed to keep my time because we're hoping to get 15 minutes at least of Q&A. So I'm going to pass it back over to Ilya now, and I'm going to let Ilya kind of curate the questions, and Nikita, myself, or any of the rest of the team who are happy to answer those questions. So again, thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And hope you're excited. And if you're not using Qase, please go to our website, log in, your free trial, 40 days. You'll be able to use AIDEN. You've got credits there on your trial. Try it out. Let us know what it is. And same with MCP. Go and download it, use it, integrate it, and get it working. So thanks, folks.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you for the presentation. And let's get into the questions. We do have quite a few of them. First question, revolving around the Gherkin support. So questions coming from Paul and Julia separately about any plans to allow Gherkin integration or allowing to use the MCP to create test cases in Gherkin instead of the usual classic step format. Any plans to automate the Gherkin tests that already exist in the repository? What are our plans there, Glenn?
Yeah, So we know that Gherkin, it has come up a lot from people about, and it's again even becoming more prevalent. And the truthful and easy answer is yes, we are. We're going to focus on Gherkin support, both in core product and I know Nikita can talk about this in AIDEN. For sure, we've plans. The truth, again, going triples, I don't know exactly when, but I can tell you that it will be sooner rather than later. And I've always been very honest on these webinars to say it's not something we're doing in the near term. It's not something like I don't want to commit to people, but Gherkin has been on our roadmap for a long time. It is now becoming a greater priority. So you should see certainly in Q2 or early Q3, a lot of work done around Gherkin support.
All right.
And if anyone, and what I'd like to emphasize, sorry, on this call as well, people who are asking those questions or interested, please reach out to us and give us as much context when, because people say Gherkin support, and that ends up being many things to different people. So it's great for us to understand a little bit more about what do you actually mean, like, and what are you doing? And it may sound very simple, it's binary, it's Gherkin support Gherkin, but actually, the more we kind of get to discuss that with people and understand those actual requirements, the better we can build those solutions in. So I urge anybody who's got those requests, reach out to us. You've got emails here, and we're happy we're really, really happy to engage with people about, the requirements. Please do.
All right, let's move on to the next question. What LLM are we running behind the scenes under the hood? And are we using Cloud Browser Agent or Playwright MCP by any chance? Question coming from Mark.
I'm gonna let Nikita take.
Yeah, I can answer. So right now we are primarily using OpenAI, but we are using multiple models, not one, for different steps of test automation. So smaller models for fast and simple tasks, more complex models, things where we need reasoning. So hope I have answered that question.
Okay, let's go into the next question from Satish. Can we use AIDEN to create the shared steps first? Or can AIDEN create the shared steps automatically when we create test cases from PRDs, from product requirements?
So right now, no. So right now, yes. So we have expected, that question. So right now, no. But we have that plan as well.
Mm-hmm. So that's actually actively something we've been looking at and prototyping, is about how do we, for instance, if you import a load of test cases, how do we identify shared steps and create those shared steps? So that's something that we're doing and actively doing and going to do soon.
Okay, thank you, folks. Next up, does the MCP consume tokens that generate additional licensing costs for us? Or in general, how does it work? Great question.
No, MCP works on top of API, and it doesn't. We have it open sourced, so you can use it modified.
So you'll consume it basically, if you like the application I showed you, that's built on Claude MCP. So Claude is the essentially the model there that's running that. So I consume tokens from that. But when it calls Qase MCP, it doesn't affect any of your credits on your case count.
Great. Question from Jason. Is the primary use of Qase MCP to add or edit or remove test cases, or does it also do well at analysis tasks like looking at the last, say, 50 test runs of a test plan and make statements about that data?
Yeah, so in the example I provided, it was very simple. I specifically gave it a test run, and I said to it, can you analyze this for the, I knew there was failures in that, and I said, give me the, why it failed. But I've used it for saying, in the last 3 months, give me test runs that produce the most test failures, or for all my failures, what was the highest failure area of the product. So it's that powerful that it can do things like that. Yeah. So again, I'd urge you, get it, try it, query it, and then let us know if it's what's working, if it's not working in certain areas, and we'll look into it. But it is really, really powerful.
Awesome. All right. Moving on to the next question. Is there an integration with UTrack API to take requirements from it and auto-generate test cases from it?
From where?
UTrack.
It's not on our current, but we are hoping. When I say hoping, we're looking. Hope is not a good strategy, but we are investigating how, like, again, with the kind of the MCP and these integrations, about being able to integrate and get, I suppose, context from many more applications and then feeding them into our workflow.
Yeah.
So you will see it coming on. You go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we are working right now on AIDEN support for Notion and Confluence.
Yeah, the priorities. So, because I do see a question there as well about making the Jira plugin more powerful. So, just the first question is: do you plan on generating test cases based on user stories? We do that. So AIDEN does that. You can generate manual test cases based on requirements. You can create automated test cases based on requirements. And as Nikita said, you can do that from GitHub as well. And as Nikita said, we're focusing on Notion and Confluence next. So if you've got requirements in Confluence, requirements in Notion, you can generate test cases from those.
Another question coming in from Sarah. Can AIDEN generate PyTest tests from existing cases? And can it update them when the product changes?
So Nikita, you can answer that. We do create PyTest. We can create PyTest automated test cases from test cases today. Yeah. If a case is updated, you basically you can just regenerate. So it depends where the source of truth being the test in case for update. I'm not sure. I need more context about, like, I say, when it gets updated where. But the first part of the question is, yeah, we support PyTest, and you can download them, execute them in your own CI/CD. You know, that's all part of AIDEN.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Question from Steve. With your MCP live now, wouldn't it be better to run the MCP with Copilot or Claude or Cursor to review the code base and Jira tickets to create and add test the case? AIDEN isn't code base aware, just test case aware. So I suppose the question revolves around more RAG approach to AIDEN so that it can be given access to other sources of learning about the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, from what I know, Claude Anthropic, they don't allow to use their Claude Code subscription in a third-party tools. So that's prohibited in their rules. I might be wrong, but that's what I know. So actually, you can, but that's against their rules to add. But we are thinking, yes, about adding an option to run AIDEN on different models and also on self-hosted models as well.
But I think on the RAG and the context, if that's the case, we're doing work on that, Nikita, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys. Another question coming in from Amir. Any support for mobile native testing, maybe?
Yes, we were. So I was hoping today to showcase their mobile testing capabilities, but it is literally in the oven, they say. So I had to have actually a video of it, but we don't have time to show. But very, very soon we will have mobile testing capabilities on. I think initially we're starting with Android, correct, and then iOS to follow. That will be very, very soon. So as in, the next days to weeks away.
yeah, to be honest, we were hoping to get everything set up and ready to show today, but
Yeah.
as you know, as all you know, edge cases happened right before,
Yeah.
and we have to say, yeah, to wait a
The good thing,
little
the
bit.
good thing
Yeah,
was that Aiden caught them.
yeah.
All right. Question from Jamie. Has Qase considered releasing a CLI tool that would install a library of skills? I've read this is generally much more token efficient than MCPs.
Yes, yes, and we are preparing multiple skills for Case, and we are going to release them very, very soon.
Mhm.
So
We do
also we
already
are
have.
thinking about, exploring the option of building a plugin. Yes, by skills will be released very soon in upcoming weeks.
All right. Back to the mobile testing topic. And another question coming from Cyril. Will the mobile testing support Flutter?
Will it? Sorry,
Flutter.
Flutter.
Flutter. Yep.
That's
Mm.
yes, in general, yes, it should support. I need to verify that with team, but as I remember, yes, it should support Flutter.
All right. I think we have time for just probably a couple more questions. So a question from Tornike. Most of us already have Copilot or Claude or Gemini subscription at work. I think it would be fair if you allowed getting charged only for subscription and allowed to utilize our existing AI subscriptions for your AI features, such as plug in our API keys and whatnot. So yeah, what's our comment on this, Glenn, if you could?
This is. Sorry, what question? Repeat that again. I'm just looking at I read it there.
Yeah,
I think
so
it's similar.
the idea is that if the team already has got an LLM internally deployed or has a
Yeah, yeah.
subscription for a different LLM, why can't we allow to use that LLM for
Okay.
AIDEN?
Yeah, got it. And I think Nikita alluded to that a moment ago.
Yeah,
About this is something we are exploring about being able to like either private LLMs or different models. So that is something we're aware people have asked for that. I think to give you context about we developing it, we wanted to make sure that we're as accurate and as efficient on a single model. So that's kind of the reason not the reason single model, we use variations of our own model, but we wanted to make sure that it works and is accurate and is able to do, to convert tests accurately, execute them, not break, not be brittle. So we wanted to test that first before we then expand out into saying, okay, let's have support other models, because there is a challenge in other models being as efficient or as accurate. So but that's what we are doing. But we're confident enough in the model now, and it's accurate, and the results we're seeing, the accuracy scores that we get at the moment are high enough that we can now move on to support other models. So it will happen.
Right now, yes, we are working on AIDEN Anthropic's models and an option to switch between OpenAI and Anthropic. So we want to make sure that conversion works, because that's not a single step where you prompt AI. No, that's a waterfall of many small parts moving with each other. So, and we want to be sure once, yes, that is done, next step, allowing open source models and self-hosted, because we want to make sure that everything works, that you won't be disappointed and won't be telling others, hey, I've tried with Kimi, I've tried with Glen, and nothing works, so I don't recommend. I tried to write stuff like that.
All right, I know we're just about over time for today, and I hope we answered quite a few of the questions. We had enough time to answer a lot of them, actually. So with that, I suppose we'll close it out. Again, thank you very much folks, for joining today. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Nikita, for hosting the session for us. And yeah, wishing everybody to have a great remainder of the week.
Yeah, and folks,
Thank you, folks.
whose questions were not answered, please send us a message in chat, in application, in chat, and we'll try to answer all the questions that have been left. Yeah,
we'll follow up as well as we do. So thank you again, folks. Appreciate it, your time.
Thanks,
Hope
everyone.
you enjoyed it. Thanks.